Hey, what's going on, everyone? Thank you for tuning in and checking out my latest video. So today's video is going to be talking about the upcoming matchup between Emanuel Navarrete versus Oscar Valdez taking place August the 12th. All Mexican showdown. This fight is going to be an absolute banger. This is one you do not want to miss. I cannot believe the boxing media has not been on this more. It's unbelievable to me because this is a can't miss fight and it's going to be an action packed. I don't see how this fight cannot be entertaining. I really don't. So let's get right into it and talk about both of these fighters, what they're bringing to the table in this matchup. Let's first start off with Oscar Valdez and what he brings to the table. When we look at Oscar Valdez, his key weapon is that left hook to the head. Vicious. That's a shot he's going to finish someone with. He knocks people out all the time with that left hook. His left hook to the body is also a very good weapon that he possesses. Overhand right is also in his arsenal as well. And Valdez, when I look at him under Eddie Reynoso, who trains, of course, Canelo Alvarez, you look at him, I think that he's really improved the defense of Oscar Valdez, and you'll see Oscar Valdez pivot. He'll do side to side movements and things like that defensively that he was never doing before. And he seems to be picking his spots more and being more accurate of a puncher under Eddie Reynoso. Those are some improvements that I think Oscar Valdez has basically really stepped up on. And also the way he sets up that left hook, he's a lot more patient than he used to be earlier on in his career. Now, when I look at Emanuel Navarrete and what he brings to the table, this guy I would just describe him as like a wild man. You'll just see him race across the ring and throw a lead uppercut. And then he'll follow it up with two jabs, and then he'll just land to the body. Like, this guy throws every single shot that you can imagine in his arsenal. He'll throw overhand shots, he'll throw hooks to the body, jabs, straights, literally every punch in his uppercuts are another big weapon of his that he uses very successfully. You saw that against Isaac Dogboe. That was another huge weapon. And his uppercuts are just vicious, and he throws them such far away, and they're so unique. The way he just throws shots in general, he throws these sweeping hooks, so they're really hard to get away from. And the way he fights is just very unpredictable. And he's an all-out offensive juggernaut. Combinations. If you stand there, he's going to hit you with like 6 shots. So it's unbelievable just the work rate this guy has. He has a chin as well. I've seen him get hurt in his last fight. He got rocked. I thought he was done, came back, ended up stopping his opponent, Liam Wilson. So this is what's going to make this fight so interesting to see how Oscar Valdez deals with him, in my opinion. Now, moving on, let's talk about some of the keys of this matchup and this fight. Now, I look at Oscar Valdez. For me, a big key for him is he's going to want to set up a jab to the body, which will lead that left hook to the head and let that land a lot easier if he sets up these body shots. Because you've seen, for example, look at the fight versus Baez, even Liam Wilson, Emanuel Navarrete was getting touched with the jab to the body. Also, body work in general, Baez had a lot of success against Emanuel Navarrete. So I think that if Valdez can go to the body early on Emanuel Navarrete, then that means he's going to be able to set up some of those shots that he likes to go upstairs and connect with. And I find that that's one thing that Valdez does sometimes is he goes crazy on the left hook trying to finish guys when they're hurt, whereas he didn't put in the body work earlier. So that's something that if he puts in a lot of body work early in this fight, not only is it going to make Emmanuel Navarrete have to defend that position more and leave himself open upstairs, it's also going to slow down that crazy work rate that he has as well, right? So that's some big keys in this fight. Ultimately, I think Valdez needs to as well be a little bit more unpredictable. Throw that overhand right more, use your jab more at times, and throw more combinations because Valdez is a fighter who likes to throw one shot, take a breather for a second, then throw another 2 shots. He's not a guy who throws combinations, and that could really throw off Emmanuel Navarrete if you implemented that style in this fight. And I think defensively as well, another key for Oscar Valdez is when Navarrete's got him in the corner, he cannot stay there, he cannot be stationary. He needs to pivot away and land counters or move side to side, and you cannot go back in a straight line. So these are all keys for Oscar Valdez to be so defensively responsible in this fight. And ultimately, though, those side movements are going to lead to counter-punching opportunities, and they're going to throw Navarrete's rhythm off as well, too, when he tries to just stay in there and keep throwing bombs, which he does so well. Now, some keys for Emmanuel Navarrete, he's got to cut off the ring, and he's got to close distance and get Valdez in the corner. Because Valdez, at times, you'll see when he gets in a stationary position, he'll stay in his high guard, and he'll stay on the ropes for a long time. And that's just not something that you can do against a guy like Emmanuel Navarrete. He just throws too quick. He throws all these different shots, and he'll just stay there all day and throw like 30 shots at you without stopping because this guy's an unbelievable gas tank. And that's why for Valdez, it's so important to keep this fight in the center of the ring and do not get stuck in a stationary position. Also for Navarrete, I think a big key in this fight is you'll see a lot of times he gets reckless and he'll just kind of throw punches and he'll leave himself open almost like he's admiring his work at times. And against a counterpuncher like Oscar Valdez, he cannot do that. So he's got to land his shots and be a little more defensively responsible than he usually is. And a big key, I think, for Navarrete to have some success in that field is really just implementing his jab because he's so long and sometimes he forgets to use that jab. If he keeps that jab out at times against Oscar Valdez, especially when he's leaving the pocket, that's going to be such a huge advantage for Navarrete in this fight. And I look at the fight, right, and you just look at some of the styles here. Navarrete has for sure the edge in conditioning, work rate, and he is a better combination puncher. And offensively, I would say he's a more gifted fighter of the two, right? So he needs to utilize all his weapons, keep that unpredictability like he does as well, but he just needs to be a little more smart about how he's doing it, in my opinion, against such a skilled guy like Oscar Valdez. Ultimately, who I pick in this matchup, it's very tough because you saw guys like Adam Lopez have success against Oscar Valdez, where they backed him up, just kept throwing, landing that jab at will, things like that, and Valdez can struggle with those type of guys. And again, last fight, he didn't have a good performance against Shakur Stevenson, but who does? Like, no one does. Shakur Stevenson is unbelievable. Future pound-for-pound talent. Saw that guy fight at Turning Stone Casino in upstate New York and thought he was the best fighter I've ever seen fight live. That's the truth. Yeah, and I've seen a lot of guys fight. So, anyways, back to the point here, guys. I believe that Oscar Valdez, ultimately, I'm picking him in this matchup. And I'm going to tell you guys why. I think that Emanuel Navarrete leaves himself too open like Miguel Berchelt does. And I think that Oscar Valdez, having fought a fighter a little similar in terms of a rough puncher like Emanuel Navarrete is, I think Oscar Valdez's experience and his left hook is going to be a shot that's going to land for him. And when you give that left hook up too much to a guy like Oscar Valdez, he's going to finish you in this fight. Ultimately, I think Emanuel Navarrete gets finished late in this fight. I'm going to say round 10. I think it's the left hook that does it. You saw Liam Wilson land that shot a couple times against him. And Valdez is just a much better finisher than Liam Wilson. So ultimately, guys, I think I'm going to go with the refined skills of Valdez and his counter-punching ability and the style of Emanuel Navarrete where he still doesn't show up defensively, leaves himself open too much. I'm going to go with Oscar Valdez for that reason. But it's going to be a great matchup, and I could definitely see how Navarrete can give him fits, and I especially expect Navarrete to be up by the 6th round in this fight by quite a bit, in my opinion, because Navarrete is the better starter of the two fighters. He always starts off great. Ultimately, guys, great matchup. You cannot miss it. Let me know what you guys think. I think a lot of people are going to be going with Emanuel Navarrete, and rightfully so. This guy's a hell of a fighter. He's a throwback. He's such a pleasure to watch, and ultimately may the best man win. Thank you very much, guys, for tuning into this video, and please subscribe if you haven't done so and if you enjoyed the video. Thank you very much.